and Human Sciences educator with Purdue Extension in Knox County, Indiana. And today I'm here to talk to you about what's a credit report, and more so than that, why you should even care about that right now, because I'm sure you have lots of other things that you could be doing. So I have a question for you as we get started this morning. Number one, if you could write in the comment box that you are able to see my screen as well as my video. Although that second part is not entirely critical, I did want to keep this a little personal. And then I also want to know, in the last year, or when is the last time you checked your credit report? In the last year? In more than the last year? Or maybe it's been so long you can't even really remember for sure. So if you could, go ahead and enter that into the chat box. And then I would also like to get your thoughts as I'm scrolling here to see that we're getting online with everybody around the world. I'd like to know, why do you think that that really even matters right now? And so there's lots of things going on that I would like to share with you. And so I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. Again, my name is Tanya Short. I'm the Health and Human Sciences educator with Purdue Extension in Knox County. And so what is a credit report, and why should you really care right now when you have 1,600 other things on your plate to take care of? So let me, and I would also like to give credit to New Mexico State University Extension, who was so kind as to share some of their work that they've done in this area as well. And I've adapted this program from those materials. And so a credit score is a number that really measures how trustworthy you are on a credit kind of basis. Can I loan you money and trust you to pay it back? For example, that's what it boils down to. And that credit score can range anywhere from 300 to 850. And that credit score really determines a lot about what's going to go on with you in your ability to obtain credit, to get credit cards, et cetera, et cetera. As your... I'm so sorry. I have too much technology going right now. I'm trying to keep a watch on my phone for comments if you should have any. And if you're just logging on, I would like to know, when is the last time you checked your credit report? Has it been less than a year or more than a year? And so there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what a credit score is and what a credit report will do for you. And so today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, we're going to dispel some of those. So a credit score, like I shared on that last slide, is just a number that's been calculated from a couple of different, several different things that go into making that score that determines your credibility or your credit worthiness, for example. Think of it as the score you get on your test, whereas the credit report is the test itself that you get back from the teacher that has the grades marked on it. And so there's several things that go into a credit report. And so things that you will find on your credit report include your name. And if you've changed your name, for example, if you've been married and changed your last name, it's going to show every variation of your name that you've had. It's really important to make sure that it does not show names that you don't have. A personal story I have is that there was an individual who lived in my community who had a name that was pronounced the same as mine, but even though it was spelled slightly differently, I was still getting her creditors calling me. Now, I'll date myself a little bit. This was enough years ago that they looked my name up in the phone book and they were calling my landline. But it's still possible for that to happen even in this day and age. It's going to show your social security number. This is the unique number that's used. So you want to absolutely make sure that that's accurate. It's going to show your date of birth, your employment history, your current and all your past addresses. Again, it's really important to look at that, because if it has an address that is not yours, that you never resided at, there could have been a mix-up somewhere along the line where someone else's credit history got intermingled with yours. And so that's a potential error that you want to check into right away. Another thing it's going to show on your credit account, on your report, is your credit accounts. And so that's basically all of the different places where you have credit extended to you. Might be a car loan, might be student loans, might be a payday loan. It could be a credit card, different types of credit cards. It could be a store card or just a standard Visa, MasterCard, American Express card. So lots of different home equity line of credit, mortgages. So any manner in which you have credit extended to you, where you have borrowed money or have that credit open to where you have the ability to borrow money. It also will show your credit inquiries. So, for example, say you're home getting ready to start shopping for a new home and you go to the bank and apply, get pre-approved for your mortgage. That's going to show up on your credit report. And lastly, things that will show up on your credit report are public records and collections. So if you have any accounts that have went to collections because they're delinquent, that's going to show up on your credit report as a red flag. And if you've had any other sort of public records, small claims, bankruptcies, etc., those are going to show on there. And I see there's a few people commenting, so please, I'm trying to keep my eye on that. If you have questions that come up, if I skim over things, please feel free to stop me there and I'll try to circle back around. So what is not included on your credit score? Your age, your income, your employment status. But Tanya, you just said all my employers were listed on there. Yes, but it doesn't say whether you're actually currently employed at that moment. Your marital status is also not going to be showed on there, nor will the interest rates that you're currently paying on your debt. So it's going to show the amount of my debt, or it's going to show who my debt is with, the amount of that debt, and it's going to show a payment history, but it's not going to show what my actual rate is on that. It's also not going to show if I am paying any child support or alimony, if that's being deducted. I know some states actually will deduct that straight from your paycheck. That's not going to show up. And soft or promotional inquiries. Now I'm going to take a break to get a drink. I want to see if anybody can tell me in the chat box, what's the difference between a soft inquiry and a hard inquiry? Or are they kind of the same? So they're not exactly the same. I think I alluded to that already probably, because hard inquiries are on your credit report. Soft inquiries are not. So an example of a soft inquiry would be you apply to rent, you fill out a lease application with a housing complex and they run your credit report. And so that is going to show up. That's a soft inquiry. They didn't actually get your full report. They got kind of an abbreviated version, if you will. That's not going to show up on your credit report, and it's not going to count against your credit score, whereas a hard inquiry would. So if I was shopping around, okay, Megan, I'm going to try my best. Give me your questions. Say I was shopping around for credit cards and I was just filling out applications one after another. It's going to make me look a little sketchy on the credit side. That is not good. That's going to really hurt my credit score when it shows that I'm going out trying to get lots of credit, because the more credit I have, the more potential debt I have, right? And that therefore makes me a higher liability. And remember, a credit score is kind of how trustworthy I am, or what is my liability, what is that risk that if somebody gives me a loan, that I'm going to be able to pay it back. And lastly, information that is not included in your credit score is if you have been participating in credit counseling or anything like that. So it's not going to hurt your score, is the emphasis there. And I see my heading there, not information not included. That should say not included on your credit report. But if it's not on your credit report, that means it also does not impact your credit score. So that's kind of synonymous in that way. So I have a video here, and I hope that this is going to work, because this is really just going to sum up what I just shared. And let's see here if I can drag this over. And while this is loading, I will just tell you this myfico.com is one website that I will recommend to you. And I was really afraid of this was going to happen, that I'd have too much bandwidth going on. Okay, can you guys hear that? Okay, this is really struggling, so I'm going to put the link to this video in the chat box when I'm done. I thought it was really nicely put together, and it would be worth a look at if you're still feeling a little confused about what all goes into a credit report. So pop quiz, I just put this up here. I shouldn't have gave you the answers. So what do you think are some of the most common errors that you might find on your credit report? So the whole reason we want to check our credit report is so that we can make sure the information is accurate. That's the number one reason. So some of the most common errors are, one, having personal information wrong. So like the example I gave earlier, like maybe if it had an address listed on there that had never been mine, there could have been another Tanya Short live at that address at a previous time, and now our credit rating, our credit information is getting commingled, which is not good. If I'm so sorry, my phone never rings, and right now it's calling by two people. Wow, what are the odds of that? That's potentially not good if our credit scores and information is getting intermingled, especially if either one of us does not have particularly good credit. The account status is another common error. So maybe you were delinquent at one time, but you've been caught up for many, many months, and it's still showing that you're delinquent and past due. Or maybe you closed that account 2 years ago, and it's still showing up. That's something that's actually happened to me before. Balance errors is another one. So if it could show the wrong balance, the wrong payment amount. Now keep in mind that depending on, for example, I have a credit card that I use on a regular basis, and I pay it off at the end of each month. So depending on the time of the month that I check my credit report, it could show that I have a balance, or it could show that I have no balance, depending on the timing of my payment for that month. So keep that in mind when I talk about balance errors. I'm more talking about, like, say I had a larger loan, a student loan, a mortgage, an outstanding medical debt that I had been paying on, that it had an incorrect balance there. Or it could be a credit card with an incorrect balance, but just remember that's going to fluctuate a little bit depending on the time of month that you're checking stuff and how that jives with your payments. And the last thing is data management errors. And what I mean by that is maybe you had something that you had was erroneous and you had it removed, and now all of a sudden it's back on your credit report. I just had a gal, I did this program live in my community before we all got sent home, and I had a gal in my program share that exact thing had just happened to her. She had spent months getting something removed, and the next thing she knows, she's getting notices again. So unfortunately, it does fall on us as the end user most of the time to get those things rectified. But I will be able to share you some tools that we're going to talk about more deeply Wednesday on things we can do about that. Jane, what do I do if I find a mistake? Well, we're actually going to talk about that Wednesday, but I'll give you the short answer here. And that is that, number one, you want to contact the company that the mistake is with. So say it was my credit card or some other, whoever else my account was with. And then I also want to contact the credit agency. And I will show you here in a second how you can reach them in order to file that dispute. And so here we go. Our credit reports are actually issued, or the data is collected and compiled by these three different companies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You will find some differences if you pull a credit report from any one of these three, because not all credit institutions will report to all of these companies. For example, I have one credit card that only reports to Equifax and TransUnion and not Experian. So for that particular account, I do have differences among two out of those three credit reports are different than that third one because it's not reported to all of them. Banks are not required to report to all of them. They usually have one or two that they work with on that. And so whichever credit report you find that error on, you need to contact that company. Unfortunately, if the error is on all three of those, you need to contact all three companies, the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And the way you can reach them is by calling this phone number, or let me get my little face out of the way here. Here is a mailing address if you prefer mail, or the quickest and easiest route is going to annualcreditreport.com. So you're going to this is kind of the key place where we like to recommend that folks go to check your credit report. There are lots of different places where you can do it at, but this is really the place where you're going to get, number one, the most comprehensive amount of information given to you, and that this is also backed by the government and that they support it being a valid place and a safe place where you can trust. And so when you go to log into this website for the first time, they're going to ask for some pretty detailed information, so don't be caught off guard by that. For example, I think when I signed up, they asked me like what bank was my auto loan with that I'd had like 8 years ago, and I had to think really hard about it. But they do that on purpose because they really want to verify that it's you when they're not there to check your ID, right, face to face. So that's for your benefit. But just be careful and think clearly about those questions before you answer them, because if you do answer them incorrectly, it will lock you out, and then there's a whole nother procedure you have to go through to get back in there, and we don't want you to have to do that. So, and let me back up and say that through this annualcreditreport.com, you can get for free one credit report from each of these three companies per year. So if you timed it right and you could mark your calendar and remember it, you could theoretically pull your credit report every 4 months, so 3 times throughout the year, quarterly, and be continuously checking your credit report from these three companies. I will also share, though, and I want to make sure I get the right company. I believe it was Equifax just said that they were extending their free credit reports to 12. Oh, here it is. U.S. consumers are entitled to 6 free credit reports every 12 months from Equifax through December of 2026. And so that is in response to COVID-19. And so that was one of the other things that I wanted to talk about and just remind you of, is that anytime we have any kind of upset to the public general like we're experiencing right now, that's really a prime time for scammers. They love to feed on people when they are worried and distracted about other things. And unfortunately, older adults are typically the target of a lot of scams. And right now, those populations are even more isolated because we're having to stay at home. They might not be having as much interaction. They might not bring up in casual conversation, hey, I got this unusual phone call yesterday. So it's really important that we inform ourselves and that we're also able to inform our loved ones so we know what's going on with that. And that's another reason why right now you should really be caring about your credit report, because it's one of the first ways that you can find out if there's been any sort of identity theft, by monitoring what's actually in all of the pages of that report. Checking your score on things like Credit Karma, etc., is good. And it's easy because it's an app and it's at your fingertips, but it doesn't give you quite the level of detail as going to directly to one of these 3 companies and getting that report. And so lastly, I would like to share that 2 websites that you can look at for more information about what credit reports are. And I apologize, I lost this on my mobile, so if you guys are posting questions, oh, there it is. So CFPB.gov is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and a screenshot of their website is here. And if you click on Consumer Tools, you can see right here is credit reports and credit scores. But they also have quite a bit of other resources that if this is a topic that you're wanting to learn more about or to get tools or worksheets to help you, they have some really great resources. Another one is myfico.com. I will share this with the caveat of this: they are primarily trying to sell you a service to monitor your credit, and I don't know that I want to make a recommendation one way or the other on that, but the reason I want to share this site, you want to go to this button here that says education, because they have some really good videos that kind of break things down and explain it for you. So you're getting the same information, but just in a slightly different format than from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So I think they're really good complementary resources for each other. And you can access everything under this education bar without having to pay for anything. You're not obligated to do that. So I'm going to move on from there and just say one final note. Okay, I did already mention this, but I put a screenshot on here to remind myself to talk to you about there is an article from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau about scams related to coronavirus, kind of specific things you can look out for, but just as always, be leery of stuff that sounds too good to be true. If people tell you, for example, one of the scams was, and in case you hadn't heard this, student loan payments have been suspended. I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, until September. Now, just as a sidebar, like if you have a job where you can keep working and you're still getting paid and you can make those payments, please, please, please don't stop making the payments just because you don't have to, because that's just going to cause you to, you're going to lose your opportunity to get ahead. Because the payments and the interest is suspended right now I think through September was the date. But one of the scams that's going on is people calling and saying, for a fee, I'll help you get your payments put on hold, which is not a thing, right? It's done for free. It's automatic. Let me clarify that it's only for government issued student loans. So if you have a private student loan, unfortunately, those are not covered under the same act that's been this same announcement that's been let go. But oh yeah, Jane, yeah. There is some really good, she made a comment about the resources. So whether you're doing this for yourself or whether you're doing it because you're a community educator or maybe you're a social worker, there's a ton of resources on there that you can either print or that you can order for free. And they're really nice, really well put together. I use them a lot in my programs, and participants always appreciate them. And so with that, I just want to remind you that I am going to do 2 more segments related to this. Tomorrow, we're going to dig into actually how is that credit score calculated, what are the things that go into it, and then Wednesday we're going to talk about if your score isn't where you want it to be, how can you boost that credit and what number should you be aspiring for. And that will be at 2 p.m. Eastern on this same Facebook channel, which is Knox County HHS. I've been trying to schedule the live events, but I actually live in the Central Time Zone, although I work in the Eastern Time Zone, and my computer is super confused, and I can't quite tell what it's putting out there, so I apologize for that. Um, and with that, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and log off. And thanks for everyone for joining in. If you found this useful, please feel free to share with your friends and family. Because even though we might have lots of things on our mind right now, this really is a prime opportunity for us to be monitoring our credit reports and making sure that nothing wonky is going on. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.